Some protests are more peaceful than others. Hello, everyone. I'm Bobtheorc, and welcome to Eating Bacon with Bobtheorc. But before we get started, our legal team has advised me to remind everyone that this show is purely a work of fiction and is for entertainment purposes only. Any resemblance to real-world people or events is purely coincidental, so please don't ban us. All right, so let's do some introductions. I'm Bobtheorc. You guys know me, so we're gonna go around the room. First, we have Bubba with us tonight. Bubba, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I come from a very diverse background. I got out of college, went to broadcasting. That lasted a whole 3 years. Then I needed food, so I went to go drive a truck for a while. Then I decided to make more money by working in the oil field. When that fell through, I started my own financial coaching company where I empower recently divorced men in financial crisis with the confidence and hope to overcome obstacles while instilling lifelong wealth-building habit.
All right. Next, we have Dad. Dad, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm good. I'm old. In just a few days, I'll be turning 79 years old. I've lived through a lot. I've taught university-level economics. My PhD is in economics. I've worked at the Federal Reserve Bank. I was a house husband to your mom, who was an opera singer and sang all over the world. And I was a father to you and your brother.
All right. Gator, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, if you're allowed to?
Yeah, I work for the federal government, mainly in their lingerie modeling department. I'd be happy to send you guys some work if you want. I am sexy. I'm just going to put that out there. But no, just a little bit of background. I was prior military, did multiple deployments over to the Middle East, fluent in Arabic. Traveled to a lot of, work took me there. So, but yeah, right now I've kind of settled in DC and, doing the lingerie modeling thing. So that's about all I can tell you.
Samples?
I knew your introduction would be great. I didn't expect it to be that great. All right, Panzer, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Salute. I come from the future, comrade. In space communism, we rule the entire world through one government. I got my degree in psychology, and then I went to space, and I became a commissar in private security. Now I'm freelance. I come from the future. No, seriously. It's just a joke. It's just because
This whole show is a joke.
That's true.
All right, Rory.
I'm Rory. I'm a public school teacher in Palo Alto, California, and I've been teaching for 276 years. Fortunately, I don't have to teach any math whatsoever, so I'm pretty good with everything, and all my students are, well, you might see them in your neighborhoods.
Are they the
right.
ones that wear black everything and black masks and all that sort of thing?
If they listen to their lessons, I certainly hope so.
Good to hear. Okay.
All right. Well, so tonight we're going to begin by talking about some of the various peaceful and mostly peaceful protests, and Gator wanted to give us an update on whatever he went to today down at, I guess, the Capitol. What were you doing?
Well, I'm a huge supporter of Black Lives Matter, so I was doing opposition research, basically. I believe so much in my social justice work that I really wanted to see those evil, horrible extremist insurrectionists at work and kind of see what they're doing, and pass along some of my observations of what I'm doing in support of Black Lives Matter and social justice around the world. So yeah.
All right. So what was going on there? Because earlier you'd mentioned that I guess somebody there's something about a bunch of ice cream trucks and somebody getting arrested.
Yeah. So I'll kind of walk you through some of the things I see, because it might be kind of cool just to get everybody's opinion on them. For me, I haven't processed a lot of what I've seen. Still trying to put it together, but I get off the metro, I walk down to Union Park, and the first thing I see is like 5 ice cream trucks. I'm like, this is interesting. I normally see ice cream trucks in DC, but not 5 together in a parking lot. And I see somebody ordering from one, so I'm like, all right, let's see if they're all ice cream trucks. So I go to the first two. I'm like, hey, do you guys have ice cream? Like, no, let's go to that one. I'm like, you guys don't serve ice cream? Apparently not. Go to the next one, same thing. So I didn't check with the other two that were there, and I can send you guys pictures of these later if you want. But the first thing that weirded me out is you have ice cream trucks that don't sell ice cream. Like literally, I'm just like, okay, I process that. So then I'm trying to get into the area where the protest is going on. Again, I'm doing opposition research. Can't get in. And so I'm asking that there's all of a sudden I see kind of this come up. It literally looks like Spaceballs. Those dark helmet guys, like, so all the, and, God bless, whoever is doing the hiring. They're very, very concerned about diversity. They're hiring a bunch of 5'2" women, which is great. I fully support that. It's a very diverse force, but, they maybe could get them some better body armor that's, more, but anyway, they're bobbling up and down. And, it's really weird. It is like, I'm looking at this. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. Like, is this supposed to intimidate anybody? So anyway, then they're coming toward me. I'm like, what happened? So, and I'm kind of like freaked out, but I'm kind of like not, because it looks like Spaceballs. And they all came to surround a single Black Lives Matter protester. And what was funny is, like, I kind of asked this, one of the riot police. I'm like, hey, I just need to go over here. How do I get over there? And like, she was freaked out. Like, she was ready to fight me. And like she was legitimately terrified. And I'm looking at her, I'm like,
because you're just trying to go to work, right?
well, no, exactly. I'm just trying to go to work. But yeah, so it was very interesting that like the police were that amped up. Like, somebody had told, and first of all, they're all new hires. They were so amped up that like they were going to war. It was weird. I'm like, they thought people were there to literally topple the government. And, it was an interesting sort of dynamic there. So that's kind of what I was introduced to. So finally I walk around and I try to find the area where the main protest is, again, doing opposition research here. There's only one entrance. Like, literally this whole like layout looked like, if guys have ever seen an overview shot of the Las Vegas attack. Mm-hmm. Like, you had an entire crowd in one particular area, and surrounding it was like security fences, a single entry and exit point. So I'm thinking, like, I don't know, man. There's crazy people that said this might be like a false flag. I mean, it's kind of starting to sim.
I saw a lot of people on the internet posting that pretty much all the public conservatives, Dinesh and Dennis Prager and Glenn Beck and all of them were all telling people don't go. It's a setup.
So it seemed like a setup. For me, I'm going to go just to witness it, see what the heck's going on. I'm right here. I can, and also the other thing is, if I were a Trump supporter, I would want to be there because I would want my voice heard, and I wouldn't want to feel like my voice is getting tamped out and that I am being squashed there. Of course, that's if I were a Trump supporter. Obviously, right. Go Joe Biden and BLM. So that being said, though, I also do think that, absolutely. The one thing I wanted to check out was Look Ahead America, the organization that organized this, because I do think to some extent they aren't a bad organization. I think Matt Brainerd's an okay guy, and I wanted to check out because there are some volunteer opportunities with them, and I wanted to make sure that I was going to be targeting all the evil white supremacists that would potentially take those volunteer opportunities. But they seemed like a legitimate organization that, I think, people, if you were Trump supporters, would want to be involved in. And they didn't necessarily seem like they were all too interested in inciting violence like some other groups are. So, if I were a Trump supporter, I might recommend them to anybody. And I think Matt Brainerd's an okay guy. But anyway, I saw about 5,000 people there, which again, the news is saying 100 people. That's baloney. Obviously, tons of the federal agents just stuck out like a sore thumb. One of them I knew. I was like, "Hey, Bob, how's it going? You on duty?" He's like, "Can't tell you that." I'm like, "Okay, I'm not. Have a good day." That kind of stuff. Just all over. And again, they were pulling out some tech stuff. Like, they had this one dude plopped in a wheelchair. Like, they literally brought a handicapped guy out, and they had surveillance tech inside of his wheelchair. I mean, they were like all out. Like, it was crazy, The one thing I did take, and I'll leave on this one, that there's no other major insights other than, obviously their snipers weren't very good because I saw two of the positions they were using. Yeah, they had snipers there. The other thing that really I left an impression with, despite everything they had. Oh, and they had bulldozers. They had like every a street cleaning truck, and garbage truck, in DC. all around this like I don't know, maybe like 1 to 2 acre area where the protest was supposed to go, just encircling it, which is really weird, you know. That being said, though, the one thing that I really kind of took me aback is that I don't think they can stop another January 6th. I don't think if the crowd that was there today had gotten rowdy, they could have stopped that. You know,
so you're saying that if today's crowd that only had like 5,000 people, if those 5,000 people got rowdy, they'd still be screwed?
I looked at, yes, and not only that, I looked at that crowd and I'm thinking, if I'm China, I need to send 200 dudes, 150 with AKs, maybe 50 with SKSs, and I can topple this government or I can take the capital. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, because I heard, I was reading that they arrested somebody, but the guy they arrested turned out to be yet another undercover FBI agent.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. You can spot them from a mile away. I mean, it's like...
There's so many memes about...
Because I guess there's an FBI guy dressed as BLM.
The amount of federal agents that stormed the Capitol building on... I'm sure I am talking here about ancient history here, but in the future communistic space, comrade, we're talking about almost the majority of the crowd was all Federalist agents. And to quote a true anti-governmental agent, he said the words, "The CIA, they glow in the dark. You could see them while you're driving. That's what you do. You run them over."
Yeah, the Terry Davis quote. I'm getting so. There were, like I said, there were definitely tons of federal agents there, and that would. But like the notion that the
Glowies, as we like to call them, comrade.
The Glowies. Yeah, but I'm not an evil Trump supporter, and I would never use that term. Yeah, so there were tons of them that were there, obviously, but there was a legitimate crowd, there were legitimate protests, you know, and many of the people I spoke to felt it was important that despite this massive effort to intimidate them, that they were still going to show up to have their voice be heard and to show their support for an issue that's very important to them.
Right.
What, they stole a podium? Comrade, it is long time, ancient history past, but I do believe I would like all of us to understand, and I will put my cigarette down for this.
Oh, this should be good.
Let us all have a moment of silence, as we are not praying, people, but we pray for the state. There is one person that died in this ancient history. Ashley Babbitt died for what the founding fathers believed in. So I pray for her soul, and I say, God, thank you. Thank you for delivering her soul to heaven. May God be with her. And if you're Orthodoxy, in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
Actually, that's Latin. That's more of a Catholic thing. Aren't you an atheist, Panzer?
Amen. Well, comrade, here in space in the future, yes, I am communist, but there once was a Panzer who lived in, you know, as how the story goes, there once was a Panzer who lived in South Africa, who came to America and rode on his steed, and the braggart that swaggered and brandished his feet as he told of bold battles and guns he had made. Anywho,
so
that old Panzer on old ancient Earth and historic history, he's actually a Protestant Christian.
Oh, okay.
Non-denomination.
Yeah. I did not know
not
that.
an atheist.
I did
Whoa,
not know that.
that guy. Me, I am space communist atheist. I believe in
More government.
Yes.
yes, more government. That is the
So
answer, comrade.
I have a question about the situation because we know about that there could have been 14,000 hours of surveillance footage that could answer a lot of questions. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. And actually, I oppose the words conspiracy
Right, because
and
you're a
theory
school teacher, so
together.
you're as lefty as they get, right?
Of course. Wait a second. Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And where do you live?
But,
You Seattle?
He's in California. He's in
No.
Yeah, California.
Yeah.
Palo Alto.
So-
Okay.
I know that the equipment they can use. There's a lot of wires and things like that. It's very easy to trip over them, break wires, and you lose all your circuit cams and everything like that. And we know there was a run on electrical tape during that time. So I think that's a very plausible explanation why I think people should quit asking to see that footage because,
Oh, comrade, I can show you ancient footage of ancient Earth from the future.
Well-
in which we have seen footage of policemen literally welcoming people into the Capitol building. Yes, comrade. It sounds very
So
strange.
I want to jump in on this point right now because I've been really solidly against this idea.
Yeah, because
from the
weren't you
get-go,
like
and
modeling some lingerie around that time?
excuse my language. Absolutely, I was laundering my relay at the January 6th rally too. Also for undercover work for the government in support of Black Lives Matter. No, I violently and very vehemently opposed the notion that this was a setup and that the police were part of this from the get-go. And everything I saw today absolutely, contributed to that belief. And here's
Comrade, there is actual videos of
Comrade,
people.
I'm telling you, I was there and I saw it. Okay, I mean, like literally with my own eyes go down. When you're a police officer and you are staring down, like I would say 2 million people, safely 1 million, maybe upwards of
And
3
you've
million.
got like 12
Are
people
you going?
next to
Are
you.
you going? Are you going to hold a barricade up in front of them, or if you're literally staring down like 1 million angry people? Are you just going to get out of the way and think I'm not getting paid enough for this crap?
Yeah.
Because I looked into the dude's eyes, again for target opposition research, and that's exactly that I saw in their eyes when they were doing that. They don't get paid for that crap. They're dealing with idiots. And before I'll cede the floor here in a little bit, but what I saw today was kind of the same things. They were trying to do. They were basically trying to incite the crowd. They were trying to do what people accused them of doing at January 6th, and they failed miserably. Like 3 guys, they had Black Lives Matter come. They ran right in the crowd and said "fuck Trump," and thought that this was going to incite a riot. And people looked at them like, "Are you crazy?" And there's multiple things like this. Is they were trying to incite the crowd today, they just couldn't. So I have a hard time believing, and especially seeing the glowies at work today and seeing them fail so miserably at what they're doing, pretty much made me think if this is them trying, and they can't get 5,000 people to in right now in a completely controlled setting, how would they have managed January the 6th? And I think that's the question that needs to be answered if you're going to try to say that this was the government that was behind January the 6th.
If I can direct your attention to the stream I pulled up earlier, I do believe I have a clip here of some of them on coffee break.
Let me see if I can pull that. I don't see you closed the stream, Bubba. Oh wait, no, there it is. I see it. All right, there we go.
Is that
there? We go. Yeah.
Am I correct in assuming this is them on their coffee break?
That looks like them on their coffee break.
And apparently, the guy without the helmet is the boss because he's yelling at the other guy for taking a coffee break. I mean, I'm just saying what I see here. I mean, I don't get it. Is that what's going on here?
Looks about right. Oh man. Oh, you'll have to turn off your screen because now it's.
I will.
Yeah. Then I'll just leave it up there for. So.
Hold up! I got 2 memes that I gotta share.
Oh God!
And
All right.
People can tell their opinions about it. These are some prevalent things that came.
All right. Let me know when you're ready for me to
general.
Let me see if I can pull up your. I don't see Panzer's stream there. Still focusing on Bubba.
Oh no, I'm not streaming it. It's in general.
Oh,
chat.
okay. Yeah, somebody will have. Well, let me quality control this. They're not that bad. I'm not really quite sure how I would share that. We're still trying out this new.
Because there were a lot of people that were arrested in ancient history, in the riot that happened in the Capitol building.
Well,
Ones that never got out.
Yeah. So.
You never. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I was gonna say was that what today's protest was supposed to be about? That there was because you have these guys like held for trespassing charges without trial for 9 months.
So, like for instance, like I mean, there are about 50 people right now that are being incarcerated for basically trespassing on foreign property, which is a misdemeanor, and it is massively illegal. What is happening to them is wrong, and that's exactly why people were showing up to support them today. Or people, for instance, like, Black Lives Matter people that were burning buildings down got released a day later. And guys like Enrique Tarrio, who leader of the Proud Boys, ripped a Black Lives banner down from a church, and now he's serving a 56-day sentence. So that's kind of what this was about for the people that are being, at least according to what the left would say, would be unjustly, incarcerated. I, however, think it's completely fair. Black Lives Matter. But yeah, that's definitely what people.
While we're at it, I think if you take a tub of ice cream, you open it in a store, and you lick it.
Yeah.
And you close that lid and you put it back in the store, that should be a federal crime. And you should send years of service for that.
But Panzer, like, there are two sets of rules going on in America right now, and I perfectly think it's needed in order to heal the wounds of slavery and racial injustice. But yeah, I mean, there's two sets of rules: one for white people and one for black people. And obviously, I agree with that. YouTube.
Well, I would. I would argue that. I mean, I do agree there are two sets of rules. I would say it's probably more that you've got your ruling class, or as my friend likes to put it, the vulture class, and they get to sort of violate the rules, and whoever happens to be working for them at the time gets to violate the rules too. And then there's the second set of rules for everyone else. I guarantee you that if the Portland mayor or if these various different mayors didn't want the Black Lives Matter people,
or the Chicago mayor, Lori Lightfoot, that looks like a grotesque ghoul.
Well, no personal.
Ancient human history.
No personal attacks. We don't care what people.
She's a beautiful woman, and she is very strong.
The point that I'm making is that if people were mostly peacefully protesting, and the government officials or the ruling class didn't want them to do that, they would be stopped pretty quickly. Like what was that one mayor? Was it the mayor of Portland where he was cool having them run amok around the city, but the moment they showed up to his apartment complex, then he had them removed? No, there's
Ted Wheeler, I think is his name.
Yeah. It's like once they started protesting out in front of his apartment, that's when he had them cleared out. But as long as
to his benefit, he is also the police commissioner of Portland, so that's within his rights fully.
Yeah. So the issue. So I don't have any problems with, let's say if the people are trespassing on January 6th and they get arrested, fine. They fucked up, but give them a trial. Let them, let the justice system work. But I think that whenever you have obviously two sets of rules, and you can make an argument that both sides had their, at least in their opinion, their legitimate reasons for protesting. When one side's being promoted by the establishment, the other side's being condemned by the establishment, that's going to create a lot of animosity among the people, and maybe that's the point.
Well, it's what I saw today. Like, they were trying to send a message. DC is terrified They are like absolutely terrified of what happened on January 6th because they know that basically if anybody wanted to erect the gallows and hang these guys, they would have been dead. And for the first time in their life, these senators, these congressmen have been protected. They've never felt fear. They felt fear that day. Not that anyone there would have actually, done anything to them, but you have people that have been safe all their lives. They've been, letting people eat cake. And as a result of that, like they're trying to come down hard and they're trying to pretend like they can defend themselves. But the truth is they can't. Everything.
Is there still a razor wire fence around the Capitol building?
Yeah, and there is.
I'm 79 years old, and this has never happened before ever in my life.
Well, and not only that, they have entire sets of barricades in front of that. Like this protest, the reason why they had all the dump trucks and street cleaners is they wanted to encircle the entire crowd that was there to contain them. And then they had another set of barricades that was containing that. And then they had another set of the razor wire fences. Here's the thing, though.
Smart.
And this is why
That's what I would have done.
But no, here's the thing, though. This is why these guys are idiots, and it's why, like, there's nothing in the back of the Capitol. There's a razor wire fence. Every police officer in the entire city, to include the Metro PD and the Capitol Police in the front of the Capitol, and I literally, just for giggles, walked back there just to see what was back there. Nothing. 200 dudes with razor wire could go in and take it, like 5 dudes with, like,
So you're saying, in the ancient history of mankind, this was all organized?
I'm not saying this was organized. I'm saying these people are stupid.
Yeah, they just don't know what they're doing.
Literally, unironically stupid.
Like your average voter.
Well,
sure.
Yeah.
But
I don't see any evidence what's going on right now that these people are stupid. I think I agree with them. And
right.
at least we have
right.
a compassionate government now.
Agreed. That being said, I wish that compassionate government would stay in power. In order to do that, they might want to, give all of their various tactical units communications devices. Or like,
well,
I mean, because you got a ton of people, you're obviously going to want to organize them. You don't want 2,000 people with guns, not knowing what the hell they're doing, especially when they're supposed to secure things, do you?
Well, like when they accidentally arrested one of their own.
Yeah, nobody knew what the hell was going on. Like, you could tell it. Like, you've got each different cadre of police, and they're set out in a show of force, and they're set there to make those congressmen and congresswomen feel good. But if the crap hit the fan, like, I looked at their guns. They had a single load in their guns. They didn't have extra mags. I mean, again, and anybody knows that when you're freaked out and adrenaline's going through, you can't hit the broadside of the barn. Like, all those guys are fundamentally useless. They're going to empty their mags. They might hit a couple of people randomly, but they're not going to be directable. Like, all of those weapons are going to be completely useless to them. And I didn't see anything beyond your standard issue 9 mils. I don't even know if those were loaded. The whole thing was a charade. It was a joke. And what truly, and this will come from the heart. Right or left, I don't care who you are. We are screwed. Like, we are just massively screwed because any foreign country could witness this at, and they know the state of our military. They know the state of our police force. They know the state of this nation. They know that we can't fight. We can't even defend our capital. And that was on display today. And I'm getting a little hot on the collar, but yeah, it's embarrassing. If I don't care whether you're on the right or the left.
Well,
you're absolutely right, brother.
So I have a question. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this or not. So back when you were modeling lingerie on January 6th, you had mentioned something to me about perhaps a specially trained unit of people doing some things, getting in and out of the Capitol building very quickly. Are you allowed to talk about any of that, or is that?
I can, because most of what I witnessed, those guys I did not see there. So again, doing all the disclaimers being there, I did see
NDA contracts, etc., etc.
Yeah, I did see some guys that looked like they could potentially be special forces there. That was, I'm not going to go any farther than that. So I do kind of believe, like, when people came out about the rumors of Pelosi's laptop being stolen, and then I did see, like, the videos of people coming out of her office. That to me seemed believable. Those kind of guys I did not see there today. That was interesting in that regard. You know, the cadre I saw today. I mean, just idiots. I mean, and being in the government for like 20 years now, I know exactly what I saw. It's just you have this entire cadre of Ivy League educated morons that have never had any experience doing like tactical experience planning operations, and they're in charge of this. And then they're implementing their like multicultural theories and all this stuff that happened, and that's cool. I want women in the workforce, and I do want minorities in the workforce too. It's a positive thing. But maybe we should consider like people that might not be in the best of shape, or maybe even men and women that might be under the 5'3", 5'2". They might not be the people that we want on the front lines wearing riot gear. I'm just those are the type of things. So there are all these theories that are being implemented that are really hindering the defense of this nation right now, and again, in guidelines with a perfect multicultural society, whatever you want to do to keep push equality, but let's put the best of men and women in a position to succeed, and that's not happening right now. It seems just like an abject failure up and down, and especially today, however many months after January 6th, you'd think that you would straighten that crap out. It wasn't straightened out.
Well, and we've been seeing
Something I'd like to mention.
All right.
In India, if you want to join the National Guard for defending your country, you must be above a certain height. Just say.
Well, I mean,
Doesn't matter. You gotta be above 178 centimeters. For you Americans, I believe that's
5'5", I think.
Somebody can do the math for me.
Well,
6
that's
foot
racist.
3.
No. You said 178.
178.
That's
Huge. It's bigger though.
Well, Google just sort of botched that. I don't want it in yards.
It's like Frederick the Great giants.
There we go. That's 70. It's about 70 inches.
Yeah.
That's
5 foot. That's 5'10".
yeah.
If you're below that height, you're not allowed to join the national military.
That rules
And
me out.
Suck.
I'm even fine with having shorter people, but like teach them Krav Maga, teach them self-defense.
No, the
people are
reason
terrible.
being is that they
No.
want to nationalize the uniform, the helmets, the equipment that they're going to be carrying. So that I can understand.
If it's 178
In a
centimeters, then Joe
communist
Rogan
one
couldn't join.
universal world in space communism, comrade.
So, I was going to mention that, this idea of putting, I have no problem trying to encourage, various ideas, and whatnot. We certainly want to see a more balanced workforce, but it seems that defense failures have been kind of been an ongoing trend recently. With Afghanistan and then China making threats about sailing warships past Hawaii and into the Caribbean.
Ancient history has shown that the Americans have been bought out. The politicians, they work for the enemy.
All today, my only thought was
History, though.
yeah. All today, my only thought was I know how Afghanistan happened now.
Yeah.
Like I just know.
So
Like,
you
it's
don't
just-
don't think Afghanistan was deliberate? You think they're just idiots?
Oh, they're absolutely idiots.
Okay.
Yeah, the people, and especially like there's some stuff in my lingerie modeling career I can't tell you, but like, yeah, some of the lingerie models got left behind. That wasn't intentional. Who wants to leave a lingerie model behind? They're sexy people,
Yeah.
I mean, but like, you don't intentionally do that.
Well, and then
I mean,
I
it's
heard that
just-
when
it-
I heard that when retired lingerie models wanted to go and extract the current lingerie models, that the State Department was causing running interference and causing some problems.
Yeah, and that's where I talk about the Ivy League educated idiots, and that would be the State Department. They are complete fucking, excuse my language, they're complete morons. I mean, it's just, these are people that talk in theory, and that's cool. Your theory might work in theory, but then you got to implement it into a nation of people that want to kill you. and like there a lot of people don't understand that what you learned in Western universities is not the basic ideology that is accepted within the local populace in Afghanistan. I mean, we're not talking about this. I could talk ad infinitum about like the fact that you're trying to cram 27 different tribal confederations within the context of a single government, and the only thing that can unify that is Islam, and how even the women over there actually prefer Islam a lot of ways, which is what we don't want on.
And also, do you understand the difference between Sunni and Shiite?
Yeah, you've got the different variants of the Hadith. You've got their messianic figure that was sacrificed on the battlefields in Karbala. You have also the difference between the Safavid Shia and then the Sevener Shias that are down, the Houthi Shias down in Yemen as well. And then we got the various the Hanafi, the Hanbali schools of Islam and Sunni that are in Saudi Arabia. And interestingly enough, mostly the Hanbali Shia, which would be very aligned with the Wahhabis, was the one via the Mujahideen in the 1980s that really expanded into Afghanistan. So yeah, we can talk about that if you want.
Sounds like my tax dollars are paying for some really knowledgeable lingerie models.
You have to know the audience. When I go over to Afghanistan, I really need to be able to model it for them.
Well, when he's you've been on a block as many times as Gator has, you're going to pick up a couple of things now and then, right?
I don't know about all that, but
I
I'm
love
sure
this new format.
Very well educated and trained social workers could really solve most of that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and that's the problem. These people are like, we can reason with them. Like, no, you can't reason with them. They're holding a gun to your head.
They're just talking.
I would like to say, if we all come together, we could all raise a son, a daughter, and I'm pretty sure that all of us collectively in space communism would be able to raise him or her.
Or
It.
Yeah, don't forget the other
All right.
79. How many are there now? I can't keep track.
We would raise them quite well.
Okay.
We would all make great fathers or mothers.
Or birthing people.
Or bird.
I'm kind of leery about Panzer's particular experience because I found a childhood photo when he first went to space, and it's up in the stream now.
Let me pull that. Let me pull that up. Hold on. This is going to be.
Well, there's baby Panzer.
Oh, thank you, Bubba. All right, this is working out pretty well. So I guess where do we go from here? Because a lot of people. I was hearing somebody talk earlier today. Who's the biologist guy? Weinstein? Is it Brett or Eric? I always get the two Weinstein brothers mixed up. The one who was the evolutionary biologist was saying that everybody's pissed. Just there's a lot of people who have a false understanding of why they should be pissed, and are. Because if you give somebody bad information, my thought's always been if you give somebody bad information, they could be the smartest person in the world, but if they base their good decision off of bad information, it'll still be a bad information. So you've got a lot of people who are pissed, and everybody understands that they're getting screwed. And I was always of the impression that the ruling class wants to keep us all fighting with each other, because if we ever got along long enough to realize that we're all getting screwed by the same people, we'd team up and vote all these assholes out of office. But maybe they're not actually smart enough to get us to fight with each other. Maybe they're just morons, and it's just bad luck that we're all fighting with each other.
Yeah, I'll leave it because I know I've talked a lot. I'll make a couple quick statements and I'll throw it out there.
I'm enjoying everything you've said.
Okay, I mean,
it's not every day that we get to have a bona fide lingerie model on stream.
We don't usually have a lingerie expert on here.
Yeah, usually you have to say it for the behind
absolutely.
Stuff.
So, but it's like it's like anything. It's like voter fraud. It's like the Kennedy assassination. It's like 9/11. You know, people are just not going to believe it. You know, you can show them all the facts, like, and you can show who actually perpetrated these things. They're just not going to believe it. There's some segment of the population that, for whatever reason, just will never buy into it. You know, and from there, like, you have to look at, there's probably 50% of the population that'll be sympathetic with you, and of that, there's maybe going to be 3% that are going to fight when it comes to when just crap hits the fan. They're just only certain people. Most people are just going to sit on the sidelines. You know, where do we go from here? I'm worried. You know, I look at Venezuela for the template. I think if there is a rationale behind it, it's, you know, it's a fiat currency game where somebody took out a lot of loans in U.S. dollars and
Brother, my friend,
are waiting for
listen.
for the dollar to fall, so they don't have to pay it back.
Well,
You don't need to look to Venezuela for an example. You need to look at Afghanistan as an example.
Dude, what's Afghanistan? I've never heard of it, man.
It's ancient history, comrade.
well, are you talking about how, like, the president of Afghanistan fled with as much money as he could fit in the helicopter?
Yeah.
Should have been
And,
smart enough to take
pretty
a second
much.
helicopter.
Well, what's interesting? I just found out that who are the original American allies in Afghanistan, like the NFT or whatever, the people who originally fought off the Soviets.
Yeah, that would be the Mujahideen.
Yeah, the
the
Mujahideen. Yeah, I just learned last night that the leader's son is still alive, and he's actually organized a resistance against the Taliban. And he's like, hey, how come you didn't give us the $85 billion worth of weapons? We could have really used this. Now they're going to kick our ass.
You're talking about the Northern Alliance, brother.
Oh, the Northern Alliance? Are those guys serious or are they a joke?
Dude, they're a joke. They've always been a joke. I mean, I can't tell you how much I hate our CIA, and I can't even tell you why. But, you know, I mean, like, let me think how to phrase this.
They're just not in lingerie.
I can phrase it for you,
I
comrade.
know people that have gone lingerie modeling that have gone missing doing modeling lingerie. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's like this whole shit that we saw today. It's all a complete fabrication. The media is saying only 100 people there. Well, there were 5,000 people there. You know, the media was saying there was a strong security presence. That wasn't. I mean, there were a lot of people there, but they were fucking morons that couldn't figure out how to, like, communicate with each other. Sure. That's all media spin, just like that. Hamid Karzai is strong. No, Hamid Karzai isn't strong. And here's the danger when they start doing this stuff. People start believing their own bullshit. You know, I truly think on some level, our great and awesome dear supreme leader, who is very strong of the mind and very mentally sharp, on some level, he thought that there literally was a security force of 3,000 people in Afghanistan that would secure that country long enough, because I'm sure his advisors told him that. Reality hit them upside the freaking head because they believed their own bullshit. And that's where we are right now, and that's why I'm terrified. These people that are doing this spin are starting to believe their own lies, and they're getting us in some bad situations, you know?
Well, and I was reading the other day that something about how the Federal Reserve came out and said that the GDP's down like 41%, or maybe it was that it's 41% lower than their original estimates, or it's you know, there's a lot of dog that's not barking.
I would think your dad would know something about that.
I worked at the Fed. Our Fed would not cook the books. There's just no way our Federal Reserve or any of the government agencies would cook the books.
And the Fed not cooking the books had nothing to do with why you
I would argue against that.
Dad's sometimes sarcastic.
Because I've heard in ancient history, long ago, that what's the current level of the American debt in this timeline?
27 trillion right now, I think.
We're working on that. It'll bump up a couple trillion real quick.
Yeah. So one of my grad school professors has also worked at the Fed. You know, so I would tend to agree with you for, you know, that assessment that would they cook the books? Probably not. Now, could another agency working with the Fed cook the books? Maybe, but not the Fed itself.
Well, if you understand that back in the old age, in the what we consider America, modern American age, that currency was in fiat. And what does that mean?
Are you saying that they've gone back to the gold standard in the future, or do they just not need money anymore now that it's galactic?
Oh no,
communism?
no! In the future, we use a currency called
Dogecoin?
well.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
Good one.
I can get it to Cento in the future.
No, we use currency created in universal credit. But back in ancient history, you humans used money in fiat currency. What does that mean?
It means you declare that it has value, even if it's a piece of paper or an electronic entry.
It's a fetish.
So
It's
a 500
idea.
500 million Zimbabwean dollar. How much is that worth now, currently?
15 cents?
Would it buy a pack of chewing gum?
I don't know. I've never
Probably
been
not.
to
Not
Zimbabwe.
even.
Not even.
In ancient history, a $500 trillion in the age of 2009, when the currency was officially abandoned.
Is this the
You
Zimbabwe
could
dollar?
have a Zimbabwean dollar. You could have an entire cartwheel filled with it. 500 Zimbabwean trillion dollars. The currency was officially abandoned at 2009. Bubba, you're checking this up for us, aren't you?
I'm working on it.
What did they use after that?
Probably Bitcoin.
No?
No, that's El Salvador. I'm sorry.
Dollars, probably.
They used US dollars.
Yeah.
Petrodollars. And trading. Went back to trading. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, in the age of 2009, they legitimately used bartering.
And ironically, we are going to be doing that in America very soon. You know,
I have a thought for everybody.
Okay.
I think back, I was telling you earlier, I taught at just state universities, just ordinary universities, Arizona State, University of Nebraska, at Omaha, ordinary universities. And I recall how many of my students were so disinterested in learning anything. They'd cram for the test and that was that. And only a small percent of them really wanted to know anything. And I know someone who graduated, someone about my age who graduated from Yale University. We're talking about Ivy League educated morons. And he said, I never really understood economics. Now, I have a PhD in economics. And I said, I'd be happy to teach you about economics for free. He said, no, I'm not interested. And, people go through their education, and it's just a matter of checking the boxes. They don't really go at it to learn anything in most cases. And the ordinary state universities I taught at, that was the case. And I'm sure it must be the case at these Ivy League prestige. They get high SAT scores. They get in the prestige universities. They get out and get fancy jobs. And they're really not in the process to learn much of anything,
Well,
which is a shame.
Uh-oh. I think Gator just cut out. I think the lingerie model boss figured out he was talking.
Could be.
No, I figured that his glow-in-the-dark allies realized that.
He's coming back now.
There he is.
Gator probably doesn't get very good internet down in the basement of his missile silo.
That's
They
possible.
don't allow him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no, my concern is that we have such incompetent leadership, and it's not just the current people. It's as far back as I can remember through my adult life and probably before, it's been very rare that we had people who knew what they were doing, and if we did have somebody who knew what they were doing, then the rest of government would find some way to ignore them. And it just seems to me that it's the American people, through just sheer force of will and not giving a shit what the government does, that we've managed to hold the country together all my life. And we'll take the COVID thing for example. By the time we had any sort of federal guidelines on what we should be doing with COVID, we'd already been following safe practices for like a month, and our town had already sort of come to some sort of understanding of what we all needed to be doing. Local doctors would advise businesses, and everybody was already, pretty much doing what they needed to do. And it just seems that the government's always, too little and too late, and you just can't rely on them to come save your butt. And I'd like to be hopeful that as government incompetence becomes more and more becomes harder and harder to obfuscate, it becomes harder and harder to hide, that people just start dealing with their own problems and helping each other fix things.
Let me throw some perspective in from my viewpoint. I was born in the early 1940s, right at the beginning of World War II. And shortly before World War II, Washington, D.C. was a sleepy little southern town with no air conditioning, humid, probably some mosquitoes, not a pleasant place. And the federal government was small, S-M-A-L-L. And it has grown and grown and grown and grown. Just like calculus on your teeth that has to be cleaned out, it has grown and grown and grown. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And in all practical measures, by the time you take in federal, state, in New York City, city taxes, sales taxes, taxes on my, about a 25% tax on my cell phone bill, my internet, you throw in all those taxes, the government is consuming half of what we produce in America. And since that time, we were very prosperous after World War II. I recall someone who had no completed high school education could go out and get a job as a working man, and he could support a spouse that stayed at home, raise kids. They could have a couple, maybe not new cars, but a couple of cars for transportation. The kids could go off to a not impressive university, a state university where they actually taught things. They didn't have to settle for a junior college. And your kids could go to college. You had food to eat on the table. And actually, it's what we would now call organic food. And our standard of living has gone down and down and down and down. And by design or by whatever, I came across something recently. In the last 30 years, the population of America has gone up 50%. And living here in New York City, if I hop on a subway train, I look around, and my heritage is Northern European, British Isles, German, French, something of that nature. And I don't see anybody that looks like me. And our productivity in America, as we import people, more and more people that can't speak the language, don't know the culture, don't act with the culture, it's a changing country. So anyway, the government's just getting bigger and bigger, and the impetus is to get bigger yet. And when people don't want to pay more taxes, you have something called price inflation. And there's a delayed rolling effect. Like, hey, we can pass a big spending bill in the trillions of dollars. This impact won't be seen for a few years. They'll blame greedy shopkeepers for the price increases, not the fact that the government is basically just printing money to pay for things and buy votes. Anyway, that's the viewpoint of an economist.
So going back to that really quick, why? I mean, I can understand why DC would potentially, continue to expand, and I understand, FDR, but, for me, I would look back at the Federal Reserve. I would look at the back of the fact that Andrew Jackson fought his rear end off to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Then I would look at the Civil War, and
I think it's a mistake to bring it back.
Man. Let me finish where I'm going. The income tax, I think, was one of the side agendas for the Civil War, because that was when we implemented our first income tax. And I absolutely think, even from the founding, that the Federal Reserve or a federal banking system has always been at least the goal of certain people. So I would like to I'm going to throw something out there, and I would like to hear your opinion on it. I think everything started with the establishment of the Federal Reserve in 1913. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's something else?
The concept of having, well, first of all, the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is a little bit separate, but a government insuring of the banks. My grandfather, Mark's great-grandfather, was retired at the time of the Great Depression. And they shut down all the banks And in those days, he had a few coins in his pocket. And of course, you could go to a movie for something like 25 cents. He probably had $2 or $3 worth of coins, and they were precious metal coins out of silver or whatever. And he went to some movies, and as a retiree, and they said, "Aren't you worried?" And he said, "Well, there's some smart people in Washington. They'll get it sorted out." And they closed some of the banks they thought weren't solvent, and they kept open. It's all a people problem. It's the quality of the people. You can't have a democracy. You can't have an effective anything. You can't have a good company unless you have good people. And we're replacing people with the Western European values. We went through thousands of years of wars, one group fighting another, and finally came up with a European culture that came to America and achieved its independence. And this culture is being diluted and eliminated. And when you replace it with a culture from third world countries with corruption and mischief, you're not going to have much of anything, no matter what the official structure is, the Constitution and so forth.
I got a point on there. But,
what's up, brother?
Go ahead. No, go ahead, brother. Send your
No,
mic. Send your
man.
mic.
I've been talking too much, man. Let's hear what you have to say.
Nah. Send your mic.
Well, let me.
I like hearing from the future. Let's hear about it, comrade.
Well, let me tell you a story from the ancient future. Also, is that a cat? No, it's a ferret. No.
What? You talking about Bubba's cat?
No, I'm talking about
Rory.
Rory.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a three-legged cat, brother, man. You didn't hear the convo?
This is a futuristic cat.
They only come with 3 legs because they're more efficient.
In the future, we like to call that a feline maximal. Anyways. In this state and time that we have, I've lost all fall.
Okay.
Let me toss an idea out there. I'm going to actually disagree with Dad slightly.
Good.
I think that while European culture has quite a bit of value to it, I think that the original people who came to America were trying to get away from European culture, because remember, a lot of the bad stuff that America has to deal with, in our past, a lot of the colonialism and a lot of the really crappy things that we did, a lot of those were ideas that were already being implemented in Europe. And when people, all the aristocracy, the idea of a ruling class, all that stuff. And I think that when the people came here originally from Europe, they wanted to keep the good ideas of Western civilization, the ideas of like freedom and liberty, free trade, that kind of stuff. But I think they wanted to shed a lot of the bad ideas, such as aristocracy and whatnot.
They used all the philosophers of, the ideas that went into our Constitution and Bill of Rights. The
Federalist Papers.
The best.
Well, and I think what's going on with America, I think America's been kind of a journey, taking the ideas originally written down in probably like the Magna Carta in Great Britain and in England at the time, and I think they're still trying to evolve it, shedding the old European aristocracy ideas, and trying to push more liberty-minded ideas. And I think a lot of the problem that we run into when it comes to people from other cultures is that it takes a certain amount of time to absorb the people and teach them how to be Americans, because American is an idea, not a people, right? It's not a race.
Wow.
And when you bring in so many people so quickly, and you don't, and you form them into little isolated enclaves, into ghettos, shall we say, that
states,
their culture and our culture never gets a chance to kind of mix and sort out what are the ideas worth keeping, what are the ideas worth tossing. And a lot of what I think you see in New York, from when I was growing up there, is you see a lot of isolated communities that don't really interact with each other, and there's definitely a multi-tiered caste system, much like you would find in like India, where you have different distinct castes. And the problem...
Designated shitting streets.
No, that's San Francisco. Or San Diego.
Well, New York, some too.
No, that's... Oh, is that happening in New York now? I would think that...
Well, mostly they're just not picking up
Brother,
after the
it's
dogs as much
happening,
as
but-
they used to.
It's everywhere.
So-
I smelled it in DC today.
Yeah, so...
It's everywhere.
So my thoughts are that one of the reasons we're having so many problems right now is you have kind of this old world, old European style or old Asian style caste system where you don't have... One of the things that was really unique about America is that you can move from one caste to another. There's not really any... There's not supposed to
How
be
did you
hard
explain
walls.
it? Hold on. Bob, hold on, Bob.
Yes.
You explained it, Bob Jr.
Okay.
The freedom of liberty. Of how do you explain it again?
All right, so the idea in America, if you were to distill America down to its core principles, what is America? What's the idea of America? And let's ignore all the baggage that the founding fathers brought with them to Europe, but like the essence of what they were trying to achieve. The idea is that everyone has value, and their value is based on what they are willing to try and achieve. I'm judged by my achievements, not judged by, my race or my ancestry.
Freedom of
or
ability.
where I was born. Yeah. And so if you're willing to work hard and be smart, you can, rise up in society.
You said it in one way very brilliantly. It wasn't the freedom of choice. It was the freedom
you have a freedom
of opportunity.
Yeah, you have a freedom of opportunity and social mobility. And as the social mobility has been restricted, we're turning back into a European or Asian style caste system, and this is causing
feudalism.
Well, feudalism is a natural state for human governance. That's why so many ancient societies had it.
I'm going to throw something out that might completely undermine everything that where you're going. We assume that it was the ideals that established this nation. For me, I look at the geopolitics of Europe at the time. I look at the Jacobites in England, and I look at I think you can make a really, really solid argument that we existed as sort of a counterbalance in order to essentially bring, for lack of a better term, European under or Great Britain under financial control. In the sense that you look at the French Revolution. The French Revolution was started by a very powerful group of bankers, and what more interestingly enough, started in Naples, which are down in like Napoleon, down in Corsica, whose family was originally from Naples, Italy. So a territory was subsumed into France, which was previously Italy, part of the Genovese state before that. All of a sudden becomes the loci of a revolution that takes over France, which at that point then becomes a revolution that ultimately goes down and invades Italy, removes the Pope at the early 19th century, replaces a new Pope in for Napoleon. And then you have, what eventually happens is at the end of the day, like the Banks of England takes over 2/3 of the currency after Wellington, failed at Waterloo, or after Napoleon failed at Waterloo, Wellington beat him. And then somehow a specific set of bankers got that information before anywhere else. I mean, if you look at the machinations of all of this, we're kind of like just a fucking pawn in all this. We existed to weaken the state of of England at that time, so that whoever else in Europe was doing their thing, we're kind of like just a side. We're just a side thought. It wasn't. We
I
came
want to
about
ask
by
a question
accident.
here legitimately. From which country did the Statue of Liberty come from?
France.
Well, that's what they tell us in school anyway.
At least it's true.
But
So
but Lafayette Street down in DC is named after a French general.
I've got a quick question here for everybody. So we're starting to go a little bit off topic. Originally, I wanted to talk, more about Gator's experiences with these being a lingerie model at these different protests. Do we want to keep going in and talking about broader issues in general? Because if we've been going for about a little over an hour now, and so if you guys want to keep going, we can take a break. and restart and keep going with just talking about how America gets manipulated. We could talk about
Yeah,
some of the
I have to
global,
actually have to
global
get to
trends.
bed. I have to get to
I'm,
bed.
I'm going to have to bail out soon.
All right.
Yeah, so I want to throw one last thing out there. I don't think
Let's
we
have
ever
it.
understood. I don't think we understood why our nation was ever founded in the first place. I think all of our history is a complete lie. Everything that we believe and we believe ourselves has been a fabrication, largely of say the 20th century. And where this leaves us is we are lost trying to find our place in a world that we're just discovering has always been a lie. Where that takes us, I don't know, but it's kind of freeing to know that everything we ever believed since the moment we were born is wrong. So we at least can kind of build that from here. That's the final thing I'm going to say.
All right, Panzer, any closing thoughts?
I would like to gift my time to Dad the Orc, Senior, sir.
Thank you.
Uh.
Well, I grew up in a time when America seemed to resemble what we thought it was. And you'd go off to school and you'd take civics classes and you'd learn about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And it sort of seemed like America was following that. And as I said, the federal government wasn't that big a factor. Even after World War II, people were winding down. The government was kind of stepping back a little bit. And then through the 1960s onward, the government just took off like a rocket and just started growing. And in economics, if you want more of something, you subsidize it. And if you want less of something, you tax it. And if you don't want growth, you tax all the hard work and growth and investment. And we've, in real terms, I think the standard of living in America, in spite of our cell phones and fancy electronic devices, I think the standard of living is about half of what it was when I was a child. Because one high school dropout could make enough living, not a fancy living, but they'd have a house, a ramshackle house, a couple of cars. The kids did all right if they wanted to go off to the state university. My first year's tuition in 1960 for Standard University, Kansas State University, I paid first semester tuition $104.
Holy crap.
Now, inflation adjusted, that'd be $400 or $600. But it was affordable. And that's not the case anymore. So,
No.
anyway, we believed America was, a great place to be, and it was. The media
Believe the American dream.
Yeah, it was
Freedom
American
of
dream.
opportunity.
And then you start taxing people heavier and heavier and heavier in a whole variety of ways, plus inflation, and prices have gone up fourfold or sixfold or however much, depending how far back you want to go back.
The price of my bacon's doubled almost in the last year.
You don't want to see the price of
Joe
bacon
Biden.
in Canada.
So, so we were talking about if you want to tax something, it'll diminish, and if you want to subsidize something, you'll get more of it. And in America, we subsidize people. They have a hard luck story. They make bad decisions. We subsidize it. They make more bad decisions. We say, gee, that's awful. We can't have people that aren't equal. And the people that make bad decisions, and, we've got to bring them up to the level of people that work hard and make good decisions. So we're taxing and subsidizing. And this isn't the country I remember as I was growing up for the decades of my going up, the first third or half of my life. Anyway, that's my comment.
I do want to say that just really quickly down on that. This is kind of a positive thing because I can tell whenever the economy goes down, my at least status with the women and my dateability goes up. So I kind of want things to go this way. So.
As a lingerie model, you have a very stable income.
That's a nice closing statement.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Great. Everything. Not. I was just kind of making a joke there, but everything you said, I can. Yeah. I mean, I can't agree more.
So, Bubba, what's your take? You do some finance stuff.
The number one thing I'm seeing, especially with the business that I have, is there's two types of financial situations. One is being poor, and the other is being broke. Being poor means you have an income issue. Being broke means you have a spending issue. So the first thing people need to do is start living within their means and actually start paying attention and being intentional with their money. So
Don't
that way,
buy a
And,
boat.
and our government definitely has a
Don't-
spending issue, not an income issue.
don't get me started on that one. The membership that I'm in there's roughly 300 coaches like myself in it, and we don't have enough talent to fix that mess. We don't. Because there's two types of clients that I've run into. One is coachable, and the other is not. We have 536 people in Washington, D.C. who are not coachable.
Good point. Totally not coachable. There might be the odd exception, but they are so outnumbered.
Who
they don't
was
have a
that? Who was
shot.
that guy that used to do the report on all the government wasteful program, all the money that the government waste? I don't remember his name.
Oh, and I can't
There's
remember
a guy
his
who
name
did like a
either.
yearly government pork report. Anyway,
I
Rory,
remember that.
what about you? You're teaching America's youth. Do we have any hope for the future, or is this
think we have-
like what
We
Joe
have
Monkey
hope.
says, where half
We
the
have hope.
half
I
the
have
kids
a
at the school
closing statement.
don't know what bathroom to use?
No, I have hope.
Okay.
We have hope.
There's great hope
Just
in the
one-
future. Our kids are very malleable. They they're very absorbent. They listen to what we say. They do what we tell them, and it's like a pecking order. They will carry through. Very proud that there's many of my students have gone on to be graduates. I have one Antifa member, and the other one is a Black Lives activist. It's great.
Way to go.
I think.
Way to go. Keep that
Is
indoctrination
You
very
see,
going.
comrade, here in space communism, we know the pecking
Propaganda what?
order of which we have created a caste system in the future. Here, you will follow under what you know, not who
Comrade
you know.
Commissar, I couldn't have said it better.
So I do want to throw one thing on that. I'm training a lot of new kids at work, this new generation. The millennials, they're lost. This new one, though, there's hope.
The Zoomers.
Like
The Zoomers.
for the first time in my life, I've been able to sit down with people and I explain them and they understand. And they want to learn. I don't know what we're coming out of it. I'm hoping to God we're coming out of it. But like, my God, these kids have given me hope again. Like they're smart. They take initiative.
I gotta
they
say,
they want to
personally,
build up.
with
So yeah,
my niece, I've sat down with her, and I was finally, she had an oral speech she had to give in class, and I was able to tell her the difference between just reading off something, and she was giving a speech without even reading, but she was rambling it off, and I immediately tell her, no, stop there. You have to pause at the end of each sentence. You gotta make sure that you comprehend what you are saying. You gotta say it like you're selling it to me, like a businessman. And then, when she gave her speech again, yes, absolutely.
Sold. It worked. Good. Good advice.
I told her, like, you got to sell it to me like, this is your job ticket. If you don't sell it to me, I'm not going to be hiring you. I'm going to tell you, there's the door. Have a good time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, I find
Have a nice
a
day.
different kind of strategy with my students. I tell them that they need to fill a lot of time. There's a lot of buzzwords you get to use. Equity is excellent. Anything regarding race, there's all sorts of fillers that I think actually add a lot of things. Just keep talking. Just keep talking.
Actually, you want to hear something interesting regarding race? I don't usually talk about this very much, but when I was a kid, dad's of British-ish descent, and my mom is genetically 100% Greek. And so when I was a kid, like really young, I was considered mixed race because back then the Greeks were considered a people of color. And a lot of people don't
I
realize
take
this.
offense to that.
No, but
Your grandfather on your mother's side
was
joked about it.
Yeah, well, my Papu Nick was darker than Goat Monkey, and Uncle Jim, when he's out in the sun, he turns pretty dark too. But anyway, what I'm all pasty white because I work indoors, no, what was interesting to me was that, so everybody's always talking about all these brown people from the Middle East. Well, if you look, genetically speaking, so the Afghans, a lot of the Afghans, one of the reasons I'm wearing the Taliban hat, one of the reasons Kamal gave me a Taliban hat was because he was telling me that when Alexander the Great was conquering across Asia and went out into Afghanistan, a lot of the Greeks settled in Afghanistan, and that's why a lot of these, I guess it's the Pashtuns or whatever, are essentially
like Cyrus. Who
they're essentially genetically
Syria.
Greek, and a lot of the Arabs in the Middle East are genetically very, there's so much interracial mixing that what we perceive as.
So, brother man, I mean, it goes back before Alexander the Great.
Oh, I'm sure it does. But anyway, so the point I'm making is that so back when I was a kid, a lot of the Greek kids would make fun of me for being mixed race because I was half white, whereas nowadays, I'm considered all the way white because I guess the Greeks are successful enough that they're no longer considered people of color, even though I'm darker skinned than the Native American who lives next door, because even though Christoph's Kickapoo, he never goes outside. He's pastier than I am.
Don't get me started on native.
I won't. But anyway, but the point is, I think
genetics.
that this fixation on race is largely determined on arbitrary basis, and
I think that is a wonderful conversation.
We'll do that next time
or the next episode.
But anyway, I just want to comment that on what Rory was saying, that I think that a lot of these ideas that are being pushed on us nowadays are largely just arbitrary based on what's convenient for whoever's pushing them at the time. And I think we should be very cautious.
You're
about
not
that.
wrong. You're not wrong.
And
I very much hate how race is now mixed into politics.
Yeah. Well, and what not even just that, but just any divisive issue. I really feel that people are the ruling class or the establishment or whatever.
I'm going to say a few things in space communism that's going to be very illegal.
Well, don't get me banned from
YouTube. As long as
YouTube.
it's the future. As long as you're part of the future.
Well, in space future, women are not allowed to vote because we have decided that it will be one vote, one communistic group, one community, one vote.
Anyway, what I like about this idea that we're trying, with this Eating Bacon series, is we have a bunch of people with very different opinions, and
very different people,
and
different geographic locations,
well, and different age groups, and whatnot, and we can have a mix of people on each time, and we can prove that everybody can get along and have a civil conversation, even though, I'm sure that Dad is vastly more conservative than Rory is. And who the hell knows what lingerie models believe.
Rory, you keep up that indoctrination. If you're doing good out in California, we want to make the rest of the country exactly like California. There just isn't enough poop on my sidewalk.
In future communism, we would say, what a compelling argument.
Yeah.
Now face the wall.
Oh, God. Anyway, I hope everybody found this entertaining. I had a good time just talking to everybody. And we're not going to solve the world's problems tonight, but the important thing, I think, is that if I really feel like the powers that be, the established, the ruling class, the vulture class, whatever you want to call it, they want to keep people divided, because as long as we're fighting with each other, we're not focused on us all getting screwed by the same people. And I really want to use the series to bring people together and sit down and talk about issues in a polite and respectful way. And I thought everybody's great tonight, and I think everybody had a good time. And so I'm going to wrap it up now, unless anybody has any final things to say. All right.
I do.
All right, let's hear it.
We continue to think that the problem is human. Perhaps it's not. Perhaps people did know what the hell they were talking about when they sought a religious solution to all this. Final thought.
All right.
I gotta say, personally, you know, the Cold War should have been a hot war.
That might have taken care of the Earth.
Well, yeah, we'd all be glass by now. All right. Well, anyway, let's wrap this up. I want to thank you everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, because I can't imagine that YouTube's going to promote this. We're not monetized anyway, so they don't make any money from us. And don't be assholes to each other, because there's too much of that going on right now. So see you next time. Everybody have a good night.